Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here is your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson.
Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, December 11th, 2024, and today I am really excited to welcome to People in Fundraising our guest, Raul Peralta, who is connected to the program through Bill Cote, who I know works with you and suggested to me at the Apra conference in PD in this past summer, hey, you should talk to Raul, because I've been watching People in Fundraising, and I think it'd be interesting to talk to Raul about the history of your company and what it does, how it developed to today. So, Raul, welcome to our program, and I'd love to hear a little bit about yourself, please, before we get to the questions.
Sure. Thanks, Tim, for having me. It's pretty exciting. When Bill brought it up, I thought it was pretty exciting just to be in here. Yeah. So I am the CEO of Kaleidoscope. I'm actually in Dallas, Texas. So yeah. So being the CEO for Kaleidoscope now for, oh my God, 6 years. We started
Awesome.
late 2017, early 2018. So yeah, 6 years at Kaleidoscope. But yeah, it's been a fun experience, and it's exciting. So
Awesome.
yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, my pleasure, Raul. Thank you for that background. As we do with every guest, we first talk about how the particular guest of that day got into the fundraising profession, whether that's frontline development or in your case with Kaleidoscope that serves development institutions among other clients. So I'd love to hear just your career history, please.
Sure, sure. I mean, it's interesting because I was thinking about this earlier. I back originally we started a company early on in the 2000s called 10K Wizard,
Yeah.
and so and that we did that for 8, 10 years. We had a great time. It was a small company as well, also here in Dallas, and we worked a lot with universities. I was more of a developer back then.
Okay.
So I really didn't understand what the whole industry was about, what it meant, what they did really.
Yeah.
I was just a developer, so we just did as much code as we could, and we tried to support as much. But yeah, that was early on. I didn't really know much about it. So when we started Kaleidoscope again after we took a little break from 10K Wizard, we kind of started looking at the industry more and more. We had some universities reach out to us and say, "Hey, we love what you do with SEC filings, but let's do some other stuff because it's SEC filings are really really hard, and there's all these things in there, and maybe here's what we do, here's the processes that we do, and here's all the things that we're trying to get." And I thought that was pretty cool, and I thought the some of the data that we have would just fit right in, and yeah, so we started working on it. We started piloting some things and just kind of figuring out the industry a little bit better.
Hmm.
And I want to say over the last 3 to 4 years, I've learned so much about the industry. I think it's an exciting industry. I really like it. It's kind of one of the reasons that why it's our most important industry for our company. And yeah, it's there's a lot of things. There's a lot of potential from our tool to generate for the prospect research world, and I think we're just I like to think that we're just barely getting started, but
Yeah.
uh, we've done a lot, and talking to folks at all the conferences, I just keep hearing about the ways that they use it, the ways that they want to use the data, or the ones that they're trying to get to their facts, or just build out profiles and
Yeah.
all the additional data points that they need. And I'm just fascinated by the entire industry. So I don't want to say that I'm an expert about it because I am not. Bill, in fact, it's an expert, and we
Hmm.
have all these discussions back and forth when I'm like, okay, he comes in and he asks me, it's like, okay, we really need this development here, here, here. And
Yeah.
I'm like, but why would you use it? And he goes into this explanation, and I'm like, I didn't know. It's like, wow, this is so much. There's so much to know. the whole the teams that the gathering of the data, then the touch points, then contacting it that the whole process. It's again it's fascinating to me, and so
Yeah.
I love that's why the conference is. I just love to talk to people. It's like, God, would you tell me what you do and tell me what process you use? We might not use any of those processes. We may not have them, but I just want to. I'm trying to learn and continue learning the industry as much as I can because it's like I said, I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned 10K Wizard.
hmm
Um, where did you go from there? And then you mentioned Kaleidoscope was started by you and others about 6 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, it was about 6 years. 2018 is really when we started. Actually, it was founded in 17, but it took us about a year and a half to kind of work the technology and kind of figure out what we wanted to do.
Okay.
No, we did 10K Weezer until 2008.
Okay.
We got acquired by Morningstar. So we stayed at Morningstar for a couple of years.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's kind of hard. I mean, I don't. We went from a small company. We were at our peak. We were about 15, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so then we got acquired to Morningstar, and Morningstar was great. The people there were great, but just we weren't used to working in such big corporation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a little bit challenging for us. When I say us, I mean myself and my other co-founder, Key Kimbrough. And we decided that we wanted to play in a different field. We wanted to do more of the big data kind of database
Yeah.
kind of role. Yeah, we did that for about 5, 6 years, which sounds exciting, but that is a different beast on its own.
Oh. Uh-huh.
Because at that point everybody was going into big data, and there was a lot of money flowing in for like Microsoft and Google, and so it was kind of hard to compete, and we started doing some consulting on that, and we did okay there. But then somewhere around 16, 17, Morningstar was kind of sunsetting 10K Wizard. They weren't going to support it anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, I analyzed kind of the industry where it was and realized there's this vacuum that was kind of being generated just because everybody kind of got bought, and there were a lot of small to mid-tier kind of companies doing
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
So we decided, hey, let's I asked kids like, hey, you want to go at it again? And so we decided to do it, but we wanted to do it a little bit different than 10K Wizard, just because the original 10K Wizard, the idea was the search engine, because back then the SEC didn't have a search engine.
Yeah.
Well, 2018, everyone has a search engine. So we're like, okay, so now we really can't just say we got a search engine. So we want to take it more along the lines like, hey, we got all this data, with big data again. So we kind of take some of the experiences we learned on the previous company, and then just kind of focus on, yes, searching, but also on the extraction part. And so
Yeah.
how do we push the filings to be more easier to digest, easier to read? Well, not easier to read, but easier to find what you're looking for. And so
Yeah.
that was our premise. It's we got to make these filings easier for the regular folks to just understand it, because they're just so complicated and there's just so much stuff, and they've added more and more and more, and sometimes just looking through those filings are just tedious. And so
Sure.
what can we do? And so yeah, so we started 2018, a year of development, and 2019, 2020, we kind of got going, then COVID hit. And so kind of slowed down a little bit, but yeah, it's the last 4 years is when we introduced the insider focused product, and yeah, it's we're rolling. We're trying to get as much data as we need.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Did you
Yeah.
come up with the name Kaleidoscope, or how did that name
Oh
come?
my God, no. Oh my God. So our parent company is Memterra,
Okay.
because we we workshopped the name for 6 months. I'm
Oh,
not kidding. We're
yeah.
like, what are we gonna do? It's like data, not data. What's about the world? So we saw Memterra, and then halfway through, we're like, that was not a great name. And
Uh,
so we realized we really need a name, and we really need something. And so our marketing salesperson, Elise, which we worked with at 10K Wizard,
oh.
she came on board, and we're like, look, we're already coming up with a name. She goes like, what is like Kaleidoscope? Because we got all this data, and you can look through a kaleidoscope, and you can find all these nuggets of database. And I'm like, oh my God, that's genius.
There you
Great.
go.
it's great, but it's also a very common name. So it
Mm.
that was a throwback when we're like putting it on LinkedIn. There's like, well, there's tons of kaleidoscopes. Like, wow, we're gonna have to build our brand a little bit because
Right.
this is not unique enough that people know Kaleidoscope. Oh, SEC filings. They think, oh, Kaleidoscope, and maybe there was a babysitter. There was not a babysitter. There was a daycare somewhere in
Oh,
Texas. There was some. I was like, oh my God, this is. But again, 6 months of workshop in a name. We're like Kaleidoscope. It's gotta be it. So
there you go.
yeah, I want to make it. I wish I had a much better story, but it was like, no, we workshop that, and that was the name that just hit.
Yes. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Um, Raul, before we started recording, you and I were just talking, and you mentioned, for you, the real strong appeal of, small companies, startups. And you mentioned that, as you're talking about your career history in the recording now too, which leads me to my next question. So, a lot of your career history before Kaleidoscope, was on the development side, engineering, software development.
Yeah.
What has it been like for you to, be the engineer and develop the team as a co-founder at Kaleidoscope and have that sort of startup drive that appeals to you?
Yeah, I mean it's different, right? I mean the engineering, I mean it's all about building products, building solutions. And so that's what honestly that's really what my passion is, to always be building. Uh,
Yeah,
so when we started the company, I thought, well, I like to build now on a bigger scale, like a company as a CEO, build a team.
yeah,
Uh, and I think our initial goal was to always kind of still remain in the small company mentality. We
mm,
wanted to make sure that it's a small team, but a good team. And so we've been lucky. I love my team. We've leveraged a lot of our connections from 10K Wizard.
oh,
Um,
good.
Elise, obviously, I mentioned is from 10K. Actually, so is another salesperson, which is Robin.
Mm,
Um, she also started at 10K Wizard. So we've known them for a while. But then as we're adding more and more to the team, it's which people fit better on the small team mentality, just because it's a different thing.
yeah,
It's a different type of environment. When we interview and things like that, I always say, look, yes, I understand your strong suit is here, but at a team, if you see something that you want to generate, create, produce, whatever,
yeah,
uh, there's no one in the way to tell you, no, you can't do it.
yeah,
The only one in the way is you, because I'll look at you and I'll tell you, like, that sounds like a great idea. Sounds like you're going
yeah,
to have to start doing it.
yeah, yeah.
So the way that I have a funny saying, and it carries all the way from 10K, and it's if you touch it, you own it. And so to this day, I still say that. So whether that's on the development side, someone goes, "Oh, I think it'd be really great to do this relationship stuff," and I'm like, "Great, you touched it. Now that's yours." And so now you own it. And that falls for marketing. I think we just hired a new marketing person, and she goes like, "Hey," she had this long spiel about why we needed to be on Instagram.
Ah,
And I'm flying. We're on our way out to New Orleans, and she sent me a text like, "Hey, I want us to do a LinkedIn account, Instagram account,
mm.
and blah blah." And I just went, "Okay." And she goes, "I had this whole spiel about it, Raul," and I'm like, "No, no, no. I think that's a great idea, but you touch it, you own it. So if you want to do it, that's great, but you're just gonna have to do it." And so that's kind of a mentality that I like to keep in. It's like, look, no idea is a bad idea. I think I think it's a good idea if you're willing to see it through. And
Yeah,
so I think that's kind of our motto. So building the team and building the company has been it's challenging. It's a different thing. I'm obviously dealing with a lot of other things that as a developer I deal with. But yeah, I think I still try to think about it as, hey, it's a small team, small
yeah,
company. You just gotta have the right mentality for that. And it's we're building things. Like I said, I on development, I love my the greatest joy was always to build a product, build a solution. And so same thing here is just I just like to build. So
yeah.
I try to make sure that everyone has that mentality.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
yeah. But again, if you touch it, you own it. And then $7 is great, and it's and everyone knows it. It's like someone came up with an idea that is like, yes, I know, Raul. I just touched it. I own it. Right. Doesn't mean that no one's gonna help, but that means that you get to be the lead of that product.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
So
Oh,
a lot of our products and solutions have come from that exact thought. So
that's great. Yeah.
I think so. I mean, honestly, we mentioned earlier how we started going into like the universities and stuff, and so when those universities approached us and they came and it's like, hey, we have this idea. What we thought is like, wow, that's great. And then I touched it, so so I owned that,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, yeah, I think this is a fantastic product. But as marketing and sales were having ideas, we're like, okay, that's great, but you're gonna have to see it through, and so it's
Yeah.
all we can't because we're small. We have to make sure that you're not just an idea person. Because if you are, then it's like, well, it's like we don't have enough hands to do this. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
that,
Interesting.
yeah, that's always the challenge.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, Raul, when I was talking to Bill, he specifically said, you should talk to Raul at Kaleidoscope, about sort of the story of, you know, how data extraction in particular has changed, um, over the last almost 25 years. So like that's a specific follow-up. And then maybe just more broadly, you've seen just tremendous technology changes over the time in your career and
Hmm.
how Kaleidoscope is evolving to meet and respond to those challenges.
Right. I mean, it changed a lot. I mean, back in our 10K Wizard days, the biggest challenge was to be able to do the search engine. The search engine took a lot, and back then the challenge was not. There were two challenges: computation and storage.
Oh,
We couldn't, right? There was so much data, and then how are you able to store so much data? And two, how are you able to run through that data fast enough that we have tens of thousands of users searching, and we're actually able to produce results in real time.
yeah.
So that was our biggest challenge, and that's what we spent many nights and many days going over it. And every time that we wanted to expand, it was always a big deal.
Yeah.
I remember when we went from half a terabyte to a couple of terabytes of storage, and
Uh-huh.
our first office we had the disk servers that were all in the same office, so we would sit down and we had to have the loudest the noise canceling because it was so loud. But back then, that was the only thing that could actually support a terabyte of data, and it was just
Mm,
so many drives.
yeah.
So when we started Kaleidoscope, we started reassessing everything. It's like, okay, well, how has things moved? And like, well, it moved a lot. Computational, it's gone crazy, right? It's
Yes.
like, and then that's when the introduction of GPUs came in,
Mm,
and using GPUs also as a way to be able to apply as a searching instead of just graphics.
yeah.
Um, Storage, it's no longer an issue. You can store petabytes if you care, and so that was not an issue. Um, and then extraction was the thing that really excited us about. Because
Mm,
back in the research, we would always get requests, and it's like, oh, Raul, there's on this AK, there's these sections, and it'd be really great if you guys could extract it.
yeah.
And we go, well, yeah, that's great, but we just don't have the computational speed or the power just to go through a filing, every single filing that is coming in, try to identify the sections, and try to write all these patterns and things on top of it, and it's just not possible.
Yeah.
And so at that point, the only solution was to do it manually. And you have then that's where there was a lot of teams that were spun up on India and other places that were just doing the extraction.
Mm,
Uh, but when we started Kaleidoscope, we saw like, well, now that's different. Now you're able you can just stand up as many servers as you need. You can split up the filing in like no brainer.
yeah.
And you could also, and now you can do this pattern matches in real time, right? And the pattern matches for us initially thought this before AI, which I'll talk in a little bit. Pattern matching for us is important because filings are long documents,
Yeah.
very long, and there's lawyer talk, interesting stuff, lawyer talk, lawyer talk. So So to us, the patterns is a way to saying, hey, instead of looking at a filing this big, now let's just look at this paragraphs. And
Yeah,
now the paragraphs it becomes much more useful and much more easier to extract. And
totally.
and so we started with patterns and we were like, oh my God, now we can extract, we can add so much patterns, we can add so many patterns and run them all in real time. And we can stand up so many servers quickly and they could all run in parallel.
Yeah.
It's unheard of. At that point, it's just it's like if we wanted when we try to do some extraction sometimes and we have to backfill, because we use AWS, we go, hey, I need to stand up 200 servers at once. And so we just create image and all of a sudden, boom, 200 servers run, they run for 2, 3 hours, boom, they all finish and it's done.
Holy
It
cow.
was easier if we wanted to do that. It was like, okay, so it's going to take us 5 days to go through entire data set, maybe. And so, yeah, so that helped a lot. And so we started. That was our first iteration of it. It's like, okay, let's get patterns. Let's write patterns to extract the data. They work okay to extract the actual data points.
Yeah,
But then you have to write so many patterns to extract. And then 3 years ago, AI started coming in. Open
yeah,
AI started, and so it's actually a funny story. The whole "you touch it, you own it" thing again. Um, our junior developer comes in and goes, "Hey, OpenAI has this GPT stuff. I want to try out some of this stuff for our patents, so that way when we have our sentences, we don't use patterns. We use prompts to extract it."
mm,
And I looked at him. I go, "It's never gonna work." It's like, "Look, I just need $200 in budget. I promise." I'm like, "All right, well, here's $200. Go do it." Comes
yeah,
back a month later, goes like, "Here's my data compared to your data," and I'm like, "Whoa!" And I was like, "All right." So then now that came into now that's the pop that came into play, right? And so
mm,
we're like, okay, well, let's start prototyping some of this stuff using AI, and the results were just great.
yeah,
And it just the amount of things that you can extract with just prompts, right? And it changed our philosophy overnight in a sense.
mm. Oh, cool.
Yeah, because now we went like instead of saying pattern, now it's like pattern and AI, pattern to make it smaller, AI to extract it, and all the time AIs do a really good job. If you give it a small text and you're very specific about what you're looking for,
Yeah,
AI does a great job. You
yeah.
suffer hallucination, but you don't get a lot of hallucination. Hallucination is when the AI is just looking at it and go, I don't know what the answer is, so I'm just gonna make something up. And so, which,
I like
which
that explanation of hallucinations. Yes.
right? I mean, because that's what it is. The
Yes.
first time as I'm going through it, I'm looking at hallucination stuff, and I'm like, where did he come up with this? And he goes like, and I was like, I just made it up. I don't know what it is, so I'm just gonna. I think I know what you mean, so I'm just gonna give you something. And I was like, okay. So because of that, then it's like, okay, we thought, well, we need to bring OpenAI is great, but there are many issues with it, like restrictions and
Yeah.
ratio. And at the same time, we also don't want our data on OpenAI. And so we thought, well,
Right.
now we need to bring it in-house. Let's figure out how do we stand up our own server farm? How do we also do our own models? So we start maybe some base models and we start training those models. So then that way it doesn't hallucinate as much because
Right.
it knows the right context. Because you start creating all this kind of data where you extract data, you look at it, it looks good, and then you pipe it right back into the model, and it goes, oh, I now you know that data is good, so it's synthetic data, and now you're building a bigger model, and so
Yeah.
it's a lot better at that point, and so yeah, it changed our entire philosophy. I think it's
Mm.
now most of our extractions are all pattern AI based, and it's
Oh,
and it sped up also our the way that we extract things. Before it would take us a couple months to kind of get some of those data points and some of the ones that were not consistent enough, we have to write all these patterns and all this machine learning algorithms and stuff. Well,
okay.
now we're like, okay, we just use the patterns just to get the section, and then the AI is able to go in and extract the data points. And it's
Yeah.
yeah, we went from a couple months to come up with some data points, and now maybe sometimes depending if it's consistent enough, we can get them out in a week or two. Some
Oh
of
my
these,
goodness. Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So you compare that to back in 2000 when we just said, I don't know, I guess you send it to some team somewhere, and they have to look through a filing to, yeah, we can extract as many data points as we can. It's
Oh,
just all about the pattern and the prompts. And so
yeah.
it's changed so much. It's game changer. AI is game changer. Machine power was a game changer,
Yes.
and storage was a game changer. I mean, all of that stuff added together is kind of where we are now.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I like I said, I still remember in 2017, 2018, talking to Key. It's like, okay, how are we gonna do this? How are we gonna be different? And we started looking at it's like, okay, let's take what we had back in 10K Wizard, where can we fit it? And he goes, we can fit it on this 8 TB drive, Raul. And I'm like, I was like, okay, things have changed. So it's like, and that only costs $200. That other terabyte it cost us almost like $500,000 back at 10K. Oh, it was
My goodness.
oh my God, because you needed
Wow.
to be redundant, it needed to be reliable, it needed to have it was a big it was so loud. It was like
Yeah.
bang all over the place. It's glad I don't have to do that anymore.
Sure. Well,
Well,
so
yeah.
I got a quick question here. It's not on the sheet, but you mentioned Raul, with Kaleidoscope, SEC filings. For people that are interested in learning more, where should they go first to find out about Kaleidoscope and what other services you provide to your clients, please?
Sure. I mean, you can always go out to our main site, kscope.io. Not Kaleidoscope, again, the whole naming thing. But
Uh-huh.
it's kscope.io. And yeah, there's there we have all our solutions that we offer, all our data points. We offer our main UI or platform, which is what we call the insider focus. Um, we also offer data feeds, APIs, and so they're all available there. But if you don't find anything that it's there, like I said, we're always open to build things. So if
Yeah.
you can always reach out to me at Raul at casescope.io and say, hey, I got an idea. Or
Yeah.
hey, I'm trying to find this stuff and I know it's here. Maybe are you interested?
Yes.
Probably I'll touch it at that point, so I'll own it, but that's okay.
Excellent. Well, I got my last question here, and I really appreciate how you have, reflected on both the evolution of the industry and the technology advances, and then specifically with your career history, to get to Kaleidoscope at this point. My question now is, as you look, from the present into the future, what are some technological advancements or current trends that you think could really be impactful in a positive way for the industry, your company, your career, please?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things that are coming out. I mean, obviously AI. I think AI is just becoming more and more powerful. The models that are coming out and the way the processing power that they use are better.
Yeah,
Um, so I think more models are coming out, and that what that turns it makes it easier um, to be able to expand to create more data points. I think everything is data points. I think they're I always say that the back in 2000 people would always be hunting in a sense. You're hunting through
yeah,
filings, you're hunting through all these data sources. And I think now the difference is now most people are not, they're just gathering, right?
yeah. I
And so
like that.
thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna trademark that. But I think it now it's all about gathering, right? And so
Mhm.
that's philosophically that's how it's changed from early 2000s to now because we back then we just threw out a search engine and said good luck and people loved
Right.
it. And
Yeah.
now we can throw out a search engine and people go like, yeah, that's great, but where's my data? And so
Right.
and so that's it's more about gathering. So I think the way that is the industry, actually most industries are going to continue is it's data points. It's how do you gather those data points to me that are easier for me to consume, easier for me to validate the data, which is our main goal always to, hey, we extract everything, but because we extract it, we can point you to where we extract it. So it's
Yeah.
like trust us, but you should still validate this data.
Yes.
And so I think the data points, I think people are going to be creating more and more data points. I do worry about it a little bit that at some point you have to be careful because the more and more data points you create, it also creates a lot of signal, it creates noise. And
Oh,
so you have to be very specific. So I think as an industry as a whole, I think AI is going to be on the forefront. I think whether that's uh, extracting data. We're starting to play a lot into summarization too. We have a couple of products that, or not products, but a couple of features that we're going to be releasing
oh,
where,
cool.
yeah, where we take, we take some sections of the AK of the filings, like AKs, some items. We take some of the risk factors and we just run it through the AI. So, hey, summarize this.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
think
cool.
that makes it really cool because it's
Yes.
like, I don't have to dig through it. It's like, all right, just summarize this, and you summarize it, you read it, go like, oh, this makes sense. Oh, the context is up on top of it, so I can kind of validate it.
Yeah.
But it makes it a lot easier because now when you do a search, you can look at it and go like, oh my God, I really want to dig into this.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think for the industry, summarization as a whole, it's going to be big. Uh,
Mm.
because it just allows you to just scan through things and it's like, oh, yes, I need to do this.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
So I think that for what I see I see that being a huge deal. So
Mm.
that's what we got a couple of features coming out on that. And I think they're gonna be really great. Again, I think they're gonna be great, but they are great. They look really really good.
Awesome.
And then so those are some of the things they are. I think and I think the other part important I believe is the relationships.
Mm.
I think relationships are super important. And so, we have multiple sources. We get data from SEC filings. Obviously, that's our primary source. We have ADVs, 990s, we have press releases. And I think the value of being able to see them all as a whole, how these relationships are connected to each other. I
Yeah.
think I believe that's very important. And to be able to extract as much knowledge from those relationships as possible, I think it would allow a person just to find someone quicker or just leverage those connections to get up there. And I know there's some products out there that do something like that, and I think we're going to take a stab at it too. And
Oh,
but,
cool.
but it's all about relationships, because relationships are kind of what it's all about in a sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, so those three things, and I think those are big. And then there's other stuff like chatbot stuff and things like that. I think
Mm.
they're going to
Okay.
become cool.
Yeah.
Natural language searching. We've been playing around a lot. We keep trying, and every time we try, it's like it doesn't look just right.
Mm.
Um, but I think that would also be something that the industry might actually need. Only because I feel like the SEC filings, people that are looking at SEC filings are not they you know just enough of the SEC filings, and then typing on Boolean and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of cumbersome and things like that. So I think I believe that and doing it on a natural language, a search like that would
Yeah.
actually be much more useful than Boolean. I say that. Elise, our sales and marketing person, says no because she loves Boolean, and I
Brilliant.
know
Good.
I love Boolean, but I believe it's like those two could coexist, right? And there should be being able to search like that should be um, is equally important, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so those are some of the cool things that I think the industry should be going. But it's everything all comes back down to AI.
Yes.
At least for right now, yes.
Well, thank you for that answer, Raul, and thank you for your time today. We've talked for almost an hour, about 40 minutes of recording, and I just really appreciate your time and learning more about you, learning much more about Kaleidoscope and the industry trends that you're seeing. So I really appreciate what you've shared today, and I know my audience will as well.
No, thank you for having me on, Tim. I really enjoyed it. I can't believe it's been an hour. Yeah, I enjoy talking about the industry. I enjoy talking about obviously the company.
Yeah,
No, but overall, I just enjoy talking about technology as well and some of the patterns and things that are coming out. So yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
absolutely. Yeah, my pleasure. And I think it's so important to capture, mostly the people as guests on this program have talked about their career history. And like that's important to capture. I love that. I also love capturing, just as you've articulated today, like the stories of how companies evolve and how the industry has changed as well. So you're the first person, first guest in that sphere of a conversation. So
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. No, I enjoyed it. Like I said, it has evolved. I think about it sometimes and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I've been on the industry for 25 years.
Yes.
I remember coming out of college thinking, I don't know what SEC filings are. I don't even, why would anyone ask for this?
Yeah,
And here we are 25 years later, and it's yeah, I couldn't ask for anything else. I love the industry.
that's awesome. Awesome. That's
Thank
a
you.
great way to wrap up our conversation. So thank you again, Raul, and thanks to Bill for recommending that
Yeah.
Raul and I talk today. And for our audience, thank you. You'll be able to find Raul Peralta's conversation on LinkedIn and YouTube, as well as the audio only on Spotify and Podbean. And thanks to Luis Diaz of the Donor Participation Project, I am going to be revamping my People in Fundraising website. So you'll find Raul's conversation on the website all in
Nice.
early January. So please look for this conversation on those outlets. And thanks for supporting this podcast. Raul, it's great to connect with you.
Great connecting, and I can't wait to see the website.
Yeah,
Uh, and yeah, again, thanks for having me. This has been fun.
my pleasure. Happy holidays,
Oh,
Raul.
thanks. Happy holidays. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.